why did God let me become an artist and a teacher? My life has just been one big fun. It's been a game, it's fun.
Well, I've known Betty Lou Schlemm for many years. In fact, we did a book together many years ago, and I've seen her work and admired it for years. In fact, she was one of the very first artists I saw on the Cape whose work impressed me and whose philosophy also made a lot of sense. So right now, as it turns out, we're standing in front of the painting that she herself says helped start her career. I was thinking maybe Betty Lou could talk to us a little bit about this particular painting, which was painted way back in 1963. You were just a child.
63, yeah, just a child.
Yeah.
Well, this is a painting of Lane's Cove, and I was one of the street painters down at Washington Square, and we would come up here every spring and every summer and paint, and I was standing with a lot of the painters looking down at the cove one afternoon and painted this. It was just wonderful subject matter. And what happened in that, I submitted it to the American Watercolor Society. I was quite young. I was in my 20s still, I think, and it got the silver medal. And that began my career. And I have been living off of that award since 1964. I haven't ever gotten anything as big as that yet. Yet, oh my. I was living in New Jersey and I quickly moved up to Cape Ann. I fell in love with Cape Ann.
What was there about Cape Ann that attracted you?
Well, we had a trip cross country and Cape Ann was the last stop, and it wasn't just the scenery, and it was the scenery, the people. The people were wonderful here, and the ocean. I couldn't leave. I kept coming back. I'd go home, come back, go home, come back, and then all of a sudden stayed.
Did you enjoy the artists that were here too?
Oh, yes. I knew most of them from New York already, from the American Watercolor Society. Yeah, so it was like old home right away.
And what part does color play in your art?
I've never been too good at color, and I would be painting. I was selling my paintings. If you look at that first painting of Lane's Cove, I didn't really know about color. I just painted what I saw. But John Palou, the great national academician, said to me, "Why don't you learn to paint the day?" And that I have been searching for my whole life, is learning to paint the day. What does the sun and the atmosphere do? How does the sky affect things? But I'm in my basement now, and this is right next to my basement door, and I set up this still life. It's a morning painting. I had seen the Soroya show in New York, that great show, and I don't really like doing still lifes, but I had the cool light. See, Soroya worked with the cool light. He worked with, he'd have cool light coming from one side, he made it up, and then warm light from another side. So I had the cool light coming in. See, it's a blue light. See, it's a very, and the cool light is hitting everything. Here's that circle that you talk about. Now, this is in a very important position, and can you see how I took that? There's the center, see? Always working, because what center does, and Kandinsky shows you this, this is perspective. You start here. You could start any way you want, but you start at the bottom, and that must open up your composition. Can you see here's your implied lines. Can you see the implied lines coming down? They're not just accidents. I hope I find the implied line on this side. There it goes, and that should take me, I hope it didn't, but it should take me to the corner. And so I painted all that cool light, but then the sun came out just a bit, or maybe I put the spotlight on it, I don't know, because the painting was too cool, and I painted my philosopher that I really wanted you to see, and it's all warm. You feel much nicer when you have warm light than cool light, and so he's in warm light against the warm jug. Thelma painted that, made that for me. And you can see how this takes you to the philosopher and takes you around. This comes up to that. This is a very planned painting. And, things didn't happen by accident in this painting because I was in my basement. It's an acrylic, and I could take the time to work it out. In nature, you have to know it because, you know, Charlie, we have like 15 or 20 minutes to capture the light, and it's gone. And so that's why we do still lifes, to study.
How long might it have taken you to set up that still life?
Oh, a few days.
Yes, good.
Yeah, it looks so simple, but to get everything working, to get the idea, you poke and poke and poke, and now setting up. You should see all the different colors I've got in these darks. Someone said, when you go into the darks, make them jewel-like. People put on darks. I used to put on darks just to be dark, but now I want to look into the darks that they are, be able to look into those darks and find jewel-like color. It's all clean color. And then the lights are quieter.
Well, tell me this. You were talking about the washes, how difficult they were to get. Why do you paint in watercolor to begin with?
I went to art school and we used oil, and I was using oil, but I have terrible eczema, and it was bothering me, and my arms are quite scarred from it. I would get these infections that they had drains, and then I had eye trouble. And you remember when I used to wear the black patches, with this eye and then this eye, and they told me to give up oil. And so I went to watercolor. I failed watercolor in art school. I just couldn't do it because it was too controlled. But I was a painter. And if you're a painter, you can use anything. Matisse used crayons when he was in the hospital. Remember, and many of his great masterpieces are just crayons. It doesn't matter. So watercolor, I took a class with Ed Whitney. I watched his demonstration. I copied it exactly, and I could do a watercolor. There was no problem because I was a painter. We put too much emphasis on medium. It's you. It's what's inside of you. It's only a medium.